I helped my mother-in-law after her affair. Did I betray my husband's family?
You just might have.
Sources say perhaps. I'm 28 male and I've been with my husband, 29 male, for 7 years, married for almost 1. This has been a genuinely good relationship. I love him deeply and we've built something I'm proud of. He fits in great with my family and I've always felt at home with his. I'm close with his younger brother and his girlfriend, but the person I've always felt the strongest connection with is his mom. Yeah, but this comes from user reasonableWhile966 and user throwaway13141. And if you want to submit your stories, go to the r/OK storytime subreddit and submit them there. A few years back, I went through a rough depressive episode, and his mother was the only one who truly showed up for me. She didn't treat me like her son's partner. She treated me like family. I've always loved her for that. I'm close with my father-in-law too, but with my mother-in-law, it always felt like more of a friendship. And then everything flipped. Just after Christmas, my father-in-law sat us all down and told us that she had been having an affair and that it wasn't the first time. He said that he tried to make things work, but he couldn't do it anymore. He was heartbroken and it shattered the whole family. My husband and his brothers were crushed and they all cut contact with her and she moved out soon afterward. I get it. Cheating is a betrayal, especially after decades, plural, of marriage. I'm not trying to excuse what she did, but I also couldn't ignore the fact that during one of the worst times in my life, she showed me care and kindness when I felt like I had no one. That stayed with me. A few weeks ago, she reached out to me directly. She said she was running low on rent and didn't know who else to ask. She sounded anxious and desperate, and I helped her. It wasn't a huge amount, and she was incredibly grateful. She asked if I'd be willing to meet her for coffee. I said yes. When we met, she broke down and told me that she's tried reaching out to her sons, but none of them responded. So I listened. I didn't try to defend her or fix anything. I just tried to be there for her the way that she once was for me. Later that evening, I told my husband about it, and he completely lost it. He said I betrayed him and went behind his back, and he left the house. The next day, I tried to explain where I was coming from. I told him I wasn't trying to choose sides. I just reacted to someone I care about being in a tough spot. He didn't say much and just told me to not do it again. When his brothers found out, they were disappointed in me as well. They said I crossed a line and should have respected their decision to cut contact. Now I feel stuck. I understand why they're upset. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I just couldn't turn my back on someone who once didn't turn her back on mine. I wasn't trying to undermine their pain. I was trying to act with compassion. I'm not here to justify what was done, and I understand why my husband feels hurt. I acted on instinct and compassion in a tough moment, but now I feel like I've damaged something really important. I'd really appreciate any advice as to what to do further. How do I navigate this? We have some comments here, but before we give them up to the comments, my dear Florida man, John.
That is me, the Florida man with the plan.
What are your thoughts on the situation? Because I've got a handful.
Yes. So basically breaking it down, you have OP and OP's mother-in-law, who he's had a great relationship with in the past, but turns out she was a cheater. And this was not the first time. He helped her out in a pinch, gave her a little bit of rent money, and now OP's husband is mad at him, like, hey, what are you doing? Why are you helping her? This is really tough. I mean, I think maybe the first thing I'll call out, and curious what your response is on, like, obviously you know, I get being angry, but like essentially making them homeless kind of in a way.
Right. There is a little bit of hypocrisy going on here in the way where the brothers and I think the husband as well were like, well, why aren't you respecting our decision that we cut off my mom?
Yeah.
It's like, well, she's not my mom.
Yeah.
And I didn't cut her off. So can you also respect my decision to not cut off your mother? Because her affair has literally nothing to do with me. Like, I'm your husband, but like, she's not my mom.
Yeah.
Y'all can be mad at her in that way, in a way that I cannot.
Yeah.
Because she didn't raise me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So let's get into these comments. Comment number 1. Where you went wrong is not talking to your husband first before meeting your mother-in-law. No matter if your decision was helping her out, no matter what he said. You should have still let him know first how you feel and why you feel that way. Going behind someone's back and asking sorry later is not how loving relationships work. But again, I don't know if I agree with that comment, because that makes it sound like you needed permission from your partner to even speak to their adulterous mother, which you don't.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, would it have been good to just like let him know? Yes, but also to your point, there shouldn't be this like kind of weird permission structure built into it.
It's like you're kind of forcing OP to be roped in to the family debacle instead of just like letting them be an outside.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not a spectator because they're married in, but it's like, it's just fundamentally different.
Yeah.
Comment number 2. Probably should have talked to your husband first before going behind his back. I get you wanted to help, but he is your partner who is hurting, and you deceived him just like his mother. Comment number 3. In this kind of situation, people choose sides, especially when it's fresh. You have to remember that cutting her out isn't just about them not wanting to see her. It's also about punishing her. That is part of why your husband's family is angry. I won't say whether punishing is right or wrong. Ostracism can be very complex. When people in your orbit initiate something like this, your chances are to participate or to not. If you're not participating, then likely to them you are undermining their punishment. I think to your husband, she's his mother. Your relationship with her exists through him. So if she is out of his life, he expects her to be out of your life too. I'm sure to you, helping her meant that your love for her was stronger than your disappointment in her actions. For people that were more hurt by her actions, it's just going to read like condoning. Unfortunately, we don't really get to choose how our actions impact others. Beyond that, you say you acted on instinct and compassion, but is that true? You make it sound like an involuntary action, that you took her call, met her for coffee, where she talked about her sons not responding, and gave her money, all without thinking about how everyone else would feel about it. I don't believe that. I think the first step here is owning your actions. You either own them as a choice you made that you deeply regret and wish you could change, or you own them as a choice you would make again in a heartbeat. That means telling your husband either I regret meeting with your mother, I should have cared more about how it would impact you, or your mother means too much to me and I'm not willing to cut her out of my life. Then I guess you go from there. Fair enough. That's perfect. There's no way to get out of this without hurting someone, but do remember who created this situation. It wasn't your husband or his brothers. Comment number 4. The difference between your tough time and her tough time is that yours was brought on by mental illness, depression, and hers is the consequence of her own actions, cheating. I get that you wanted to return the compassion she showed you, but you should let sleeping dogs lie.
Talk to me. Give it to me.
Really quick. It's kind of like a okay story time. There's a man. Me and my buddy were skiing in Taos, right?
Yep.
We get stuck up there on the mountain. We've lost his keys. His car's parked in the lot. We have no way. We are 3 hours from civilization. We have no way to get back home. A guy working in the parking lot ended up literally giving us his truck at the end of the day. We drove it 3 hours back to where we lived, got his spare key, drove the truck back, and gave it back to that guy. And his name was Kurt. And I will never, ever, ever forget how Kurt had our back. So hard. And so like for me, like I know that is two very different situations than what's going on in the story,
right?
But I will always remember how much Kurt helped me. So for OP's always going to remember how much the mother-in-law helped him in that moment. None of the stuff outside of that matters. Like Kurt could have an affair with his wife. I would still help Kurt because he helped, because you have no idea how screwed me and my friend were.
I'm going to be honest. I think it's a gray zone. And I think that like, I do understand, especially in other cases. Again, we talked about the scenario of like, oh, what if OP kept inviting mother-in-law to like family functions and they're like, hey, we don't want to see this woman who like broke all of our hearts, broke our father's heart. Like that's a completely different story where OP's like kind of interrupting their kind of like siloed experience, like you said,
right?
Like bringing it inside instead of it being outside.
She's like, he'd be hijacking the no contact.
Yeah, the no contact, exactly.
Right.
So while I do think it is a gray zone, I just like, putting on our judge robes and like having to decide on the gray area. I just don't think it's a punishment that fits the crime. I just don't think that. Even though I understand, OP could have just maybe communicated that was going to happen. Like, hey, look, I'm going to do this. This is why. I like your point of like not having like a permission thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Update March 26th, 3 days later. I lost access to my previous account, so I'm posting it from here. I didn't expect my post to gain the kind of traction it did. I genuinely appreciate the advice many of you offered. Some responses were a bit nuclear, understandably because Reddit, but I did take in a lot of perspectives that helped me reflect. I want to share some context that I didn't include in the original post, which I now realize was important. A few years ago, I went through a rough depressive episode. My husband and I were doing long distance at the time. He was working abroad. What's her name? And while he supported me as best he could, it was hard. His mom was the one who showed up in person. She dropped by often, made sure I was eating, even came with me to therapy a couple of times. It wasn't some grand gesture, but it mattered. That kind of consistency stays with you. So when she reached out a few days ago, anxious and saying she didn't know who else to ask, I just reacted. I helped her with a bit of money from my personal account. Nothing major, and I agreed to meet her for coffee. I didn't tell my husband before doing it, and that was where things really unraveled. He was blindsided. We've always been the kind of couple who talks through the hard stuff, and I acted completely on my own. I see now how that felt like betrayal to him. After a bit of space and some heavy conversations, we talked properly. He told me he'd spoken to his younger brother and finally got the full story about their last attempt to reach out to their mom. It wasn't just an argument, it was bad. She said things that were apparently cruel and deeply personal, the kind of stuff that cuts years deep. I hadn't known any of that. Neither of us had. Hearing it changed something for me. The woman I saw at coffee was warm, vulnerable, even a little lost, but that's not the woman his brother dealt with. And maybe both are real. Maybe she's unraveling. Maybe she's always been complicated. I honestly don't know, and I'm gonna pause really quick to say both of them are real. Dustin Hoffman is an actor. Really quick, I promise this is relevant. Talks about how it's like, actors will be like, oh, I couldn't possibly play like the mean person or the and it's like, why? And it's like, well, because I'm so nice. It's like, but you're not nice all the time. Like that there's a mean version of you inside of you that you could bring out. You just don't want to because you've been told that it's like wrong or whatever. So there's a version of her that is that person talking to her youngest son. And then there's the version of her that you spoke to that is the warm, empathetic, confused woman. They both exist.
Yeah, I like how OP's basically painting the whole portrait of like, it is complicated. She is a whole person with these multiple sides, and like she's hurting, her son's over here, and she gave me life-changing help over here.
Yes.
Both are true at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
What I do know here is that my husband's boundaries are valid. Which is true. He told me clearly that he's not ready to reconnect with her and that he's not comfortable with me being in touch with her either. And after hearing what I've heard, I understand that. I've told him I'm stepping back. If she does reach out again, I'll tell her that I can't be the person in the middle, not unless something genuinely shifts between them first. We both apologized. He for shutting down so quickly, and me for making a decision without him when I shouldn't have. We're okay now. I still think there's something more going on with her emotionally, maybe even mentally. She's been a stay-at-home mom most of her life, and her siblings live abroad, and from what I've heard, she's already asked her friends for help before coming to me. That doesn't excuse anything, but it does make me think about how lost she might be right now. Still, that's not something I can fix. Right now, my focus is on us. I can care about what his mom did for me in the past and still recognize that she has hurt people I love. This whole situation has been messy and a bit surreal. We didn't walk away from it with everything fixed, but we've come out of it with a better understanding of where we each stand. We handled it in the best way we could, and at the end of the day, we're still solid. And by the way, you can be so solid by solidly listening to full episodes with stories like this one. All you have to do is go to iHeartRadio or Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts and search OK Storytime. But, before we finish it, we're in a good place.
I am just in awe and love this communication and just the realness of it,
yes.
The rawness of it. Hey, look, it was messy. We learned the mom is a complicated person with multiple things, but you know what? We sat down, we talked about it, we looked at ourselves, we looked at our partners, we looked at the whole scenario, and we came out better for it.
That's right.
What more can you ask?
So, still, I can't lie. There's a part of me that feels pulled toward who she was for me during that rough time. Letting go emotionally feels messy messier than I expected. How do you emotionally let go of someone who was once there for you when the situation clearly calls for distance? We have some comments providing some insight here. Couples resolving issues like adults, talking them out and listening to each other is always nice to see in an update. Yes, I agree. Comment 2, I think your comment about maybe she's always been complicated is probably spot on. Most people are complex and you only see the side that they allow you to. Number 3, tough situation for sure. In the end, you only knew the part of her she was willing to show you. Her compassion when you needed a friend was undeniable. However, there seems to be a lot more about her that you truly don't know and probably never will. You tried to support her in a similar way that she supported you. That part is now done. And while you may not think of it as being in the same meaningful way, it definitely was for her. Let it go now and feel good about being compassionate to her, but let your husband and his family dictate any further involvement. Best wishes. I love that comment. I love it.
OP and the commenters just locked in.
We're crushing.
Locked in right now.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
This is a healthy update and brave of you to recognize that the person you knew who helped you and the person who caused a lot of hurt are not mutually exclusive. They are both capable of existing at the same time, and they both come with their own type of grief in a situation like this. Reconciling the love and esteem you have for someone who fundamentally supported you through darkness is so challenging in light of them creating that darkness for someone else. Many someones, really. Do you think maybe some therapy might help you short-term in processing these feelings? I commend you and your husband both for communicating and giving each other grace during this time. It's easy to lose sight of things when we're fraught and emotionally charged. You both came together, created space and acknowledgement for one another, and came to the resolution you have now. However fragile it feels, it is still progress. Things will become easier with time and a little bit of distance from it. Good job! And ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of that story.
What notes do I have?
None. That was a great, perfect ending.
Just what a great analysis, what great self-awareness, what great empathy, what great communication. You can't ask for more.
Yeah.
And you know what? Life can be complicated.
Yeah.
These people can be complicated, but we acknowledge it and we just work.